Hey there, film fans, and welcome to another deep dive with us. This time we're getting into the holiday spirit a little early with a true Christmas gem, Prancer. Now, I know you might be thinking another reindeer movie, really.
I have to admit I had that same thought.
But trust me on this one. This 1989 classic, it's
He really is something special.
more than your typical heartwarming Christmas story. It's got depth, it's got charm, and a whole lot of heart.
What really gets me about Prancer is how it takes that idea of believing in the impossible and weaves it in with these really honest portrayals of what families go through, and it shows how much a whole community can come together.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. For those of you who haven't seen it, picture this. It's the late 80s, rural America. And we meet this amazing little girl, Jessica Riggs,
Jessica.
living on a struggling apple farm
Right.
with her dad, John, who's a widower, and her brother.
What's striking about this film is that it doesn't shy away from showing how hard things are for this family.
Yeah.
John's dealing with so much, the grief and the money problems, and it all feels so real, which I think really makes Jessica's belief in something bigger stand out even more.
Exactly. It's like that tough backdrop makes her optimism shine even brighter, and then bam, enter Prancer. At least that's who Jessica believes she's found. A wounded reindeer in the woods.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I love how they kind of hint at that discovery earlier in the film. You remember when that plastic reindeer falls from the Christmas display in town?
Oh, yeah, almost like fate or a little holiday magic with setting things up.
A little foreshadowing.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. We see this clash between Jessica's pure belief in Prancer and how skeptical the adults around her are. She's absolutely determined to nurse this reindeer back to health.
I mean, wouldn't you be?
She even tries to get the town vet to help.
That scene with the vet is just gold. He's clearly a good guy. But he's also very much grounded in reality. You can almost see him wanting to believe along with Jessica, even though he knows better.
Right, you can see that little bit of doubt creeping in. And it's not just the vet. She even tries to get in touch with Santa himself.
Wait, how does she do that?
She takes a Polaroid picture of Prancer and sends it off with a letter to Santa. Through 'em all, Santa.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's so perfectly 80s too with the Polaroid camera. And it really shows how kids see the world, with that pure hope and trust.
Exactly. But it's not just about finding Prancer, it's about protecting him. She hides him in the barn away from her dad. Now, John, understandably, he's stressed. Who wouldn't be a little freaked out to find a reindeer in their barn?
Yeah, a reindeer's not exactly what you need when you're trying to keep a farm afloat.
But for Jessica, Prancer's this symbol of hope. Something magical in a world that feels pretty bleak to her.
Classic kid logic versus adult logic.
And speaking of hope, can we talk about Jessica's relationship with Mrs. McFarland? This reclusive, kind of grumpy old woman who becomes her unlikely friend.
Cloris Leachman is just perfect as Mrs. McFarland. You get the feeling she's lost her own sparks somewhere along the way. And Jessica and her belief in Prancer kind of reawakens that in her.
I love how Jessica tries to earn money to buy reindeer food by helping Mrs. McFarland out,
It shows how dedicated she is to Prancer.
and how far she'll go to protect him.
It also really highlights that theme of community that runs through the whole film. Even in a small town where everyone's struggling, people find ways to help each other out.
And then things take a turn. Remember that letter Jessica sent to Santa?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the mall Santa gives it to a local newspaper editor. And guess what?
Just don't tell me.
It gets published.
No way.
And then it gets even better. The story ends up in the local pastor's sermon. So suddenly, everyone in town knows about Prancer.
Oh, wow. So what happens then? Does everyone think she's crazy now?
That's what's so fascinating. It's not all ridicule or disbelief. There's this sense of wonder. Like people want to believe alongside Jessica.
That's so clever. It's like the filmmakers are tapping into that universal desire we all have, that yearning for something to believe in, especially when things are tough.
And it all circles back to John Wright. He's still dealing with the reality of the situation. But you start to see him soften a little. Jessica's faith, it starts to get to him, even if he doesn't want to admit it.
He's caught between those two worlds, adult responsibility and the magic that Jessica represents.
You know what I think? That's what makes John's character so compelling. He's flawed, he's grumpy. But deep down, he wants to believe too. He just needs a little push.
And he gets a big push, all right, in the form of pure reindeer chaos. There's that scene where Prancer escapes from the barn.
Oh, yeah.
And he lets all the other animals out. And then
What a mess.
total haddock inside the house.
Pure slapstick comedy.
But it also shows that clash between John's practical side and Jessica's magical thinking.
I mean, can you imagine coming home to that?
A reindeer in your living room.
It would be pretty hard to stay grounded.
And for John, it's a turning point. He is just at his wit's end, with the farm, the bills, and now a reindeer on the loose. And it leads to this moment that's both really sad and really important. He almost shoots Prancer.
Yeah, that scene is intense. It's a good reminder that even in these heartwarming Christmas movies, life can throw you a curveball.
But thankfully, things don't go that far. A local butcher steps in and offers to buy Prancer.
Talk about a close call.
But Jessica, she's not giving up that easily. She's convinced the butcher is going to hurt Prancer, and she runs away from home to save him.
Oh, man. That scene gets me every time.
It's heartbreaking. You see this little girl, driven by pure love and fear, taking on the world to protect this creature she believes in.
And she ends up getting hurt, which is what finally breaks down John's resistance. He goes to her room, and he reads to her from, "Yes, Virginia, there's a Santa Claus."
Yeah.
Such a tender moment.
It's so powerful. John finally lets go of that cynicism, and he embraces belief, not just for Jessica, but for himself, too.
He realizes that sometimes. You got to hold on to hope, even when it doesn't make sense.
And it's not just John who's touched by Jessica's faith. The whole town rallies around her. They sing carols outside her window, offering support and encouragement.
It's a beautiful reminder that even in tough times, a community can come together.
Jessica's belief, it's like it sparks something in everyone, a need to believe in something good, especially when things are hard.
And that brings us to Christmas Eve at Antler Ridge. John's all in now. He helps Jessica take Prancer to this spot where they think Santa will find him.
Yeah, that scene is just magical. You can feel the weight of all Jessica's hopes and dreams as they let Prancer go.
And then those sleigh bells in the distance.
Chills every time.
Okay, so here's the big question. Did Prancer make it back to Santa? That ending is one of the most debated parts of the film.
Right. It's left open-ended on purpose. We see that streak of light in the sky, but the film never actually shows us Prancer with Santa.
Which I think is brilliant. It leaves it up to us to decide, what do we believe?
It invites us to embrace the mystery, the possibility, the magic.
It's not about having all the answers. It's about keeping that belief alive.
And that's the power of film. It's not just about telling a story. It's about creating an experience that stays with you long after the movie's over.
Speaking of creating an experience, can we talk about the performances for a minute? Sam Elliott as John. He's just perfect.
He really is.
Gruff, world-weary, but with that heart of gold underneath.
You can see him wrestling with everything, the grief, the pressure, and trying to be there for Jessica.
And Rebecca Harrell as Jessica, she's just radiant.
Absolutely.
She captures that innocence and determination perfectly.
Yeah.
You can't help but root for her.
And the chemistry between them, it's so believable. They make you feel that father-daughter bond.
And Cloris Leachman, she steals every scene she's in as Ms. McFarlane.
Oh, yeah, she's fantastic. She brings that dry humor and warmth to the film.
You know what I think makes Prancer such a classic? Is that it taps into something we all feel. That desire to believe in something bigger than ourselves. The power of hope and family. And that magic that happens when we open ourselves up to the extraordinary.
It's a film that reminds us that even in a world that can feel cynical, there's still space for wonder and that childlike belief.
But it's not just a feel-good fairy tale. It shows the tough parts of life, too. The grief, the struggles. Do you think that's part of why it resonates with so many people?
Absolutely, Prancer. It manages to be both heartwarming and real at the same time. And I think that's why people still love it all these years later.
Yeah, it would have been so easy to make everything perfect.
Yeah.
You know, like this ideal Christmas world. But they didn't. They showed the hard stuff right alongside the hope.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much more powerful.
It's like a reminder that even when things are tough, there's always something good out there. And sometimes the things that bring us back to that, they come in the most unexpected ways.
Like a wounded reindeer. You know, speaking of Prancer, we have to give some credit to those animal actors.
Oh yeah, they were amazing.
They really made you believe Prancer was feeling things. Reacting to Jessica taking care of him. Even causing a little trouble.
The filmmakers did such a great job. They captured that reindeer spirit without making Prancer too human-like. He's a reindeer, and that's what makes him so special.
It's all about those subtle details.
Right.
They didn't need Prancer to talk or sing. He brought the magic just by being there.
So what does all this mean for you listening at home? I think Prancer reminds us to never give up hope, even when life gets you down. It shows us that there's always room for kindness and compassion, and that believing in something amazing is never a bad thing.
Beautifully put. I think it also tells us to hold on to that childlike wonder. that ability to see the world with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
to find those little joys, and to believe in the impossible, even when it seems crazy.
This holiday season, maybe take a page from Jessica's book. Embrace that Prancer spirit. Look for the magic around you. Hold on to hope. And remember that the best gifts, they often come in the most surprising ways.
And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll even spot a reindeer in your own backyard.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Prancer. It always gets me in the mood for the holidays.
It's been great exploring this one with you. Wishing you all a holiday season filled with wonder and joy.
And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more great movie reviews. Until next time, happy holidays, and keep believing.